Hello everyone. So in this lesson we're going to talk about the characteristics of living things. Again, this is one of the things you've taken in the past, but we're just going to review it because we're going to get into looking at the microscope, and we'll be looking at some living things underneath the microscope. And then after we look at the microscope, we're going to head into cells, do a review of cells from grade, I think it's grade 8 you guys did them. And I know any of you who went to West Ferris for elementary school, I know you've had a really good background on cells and microscopes, so hopefully we'll get through this fairly quick. Then we're going to be getting into human systems, so we'll be talking about the skeletal system and the muscle system and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's talk about the characteristics of life and then we can move on here. So if we look at the characteristic of living things, one of the things we notice about them is that they're made up of cells. Now, it can be made up of one cell, so something like an amoeba or a protozoa that's made of one cell, or it can be made up of a number of cells. All right, so we're made up of cells. In the first picture here, you see, oh shoot, forgot about this one. So we've got, your cells can be unicellular. Like I said, it could be something like an amoeba or protozoa that's only made up of one cell, or a bacteria, or it can be multicellular like our plants or our animal cells. So the first picture here, we've got a picture of, or a diagram of moss. So this is what moss looks like under the microscope. These are all individual cells all working together, and here's the chloroplasts that are in the moss. The next example here is an onion cell. So we're going to be looking at onion cell. I know a lot of you did it way back in grade 8, but we're going to do it again just because you're much smarter in grade 10 and you'll remember it a little bit more. And the last thing are, here's what your muscle cells look like underneath the microscope. So this is being stained. They don't actually look pink with purple in them, but that's what they look like. So they're multicellular. The next thing about our characteristics of life are that things grow and develop. So we can grow and develop a couple of different ways. One way we can do is increase in the cell size. So your actual cells grow to be bigger cells. They get to a certain size and then there's a signal that tells them it's time to divide. And we'll be talking about cell division when we get to mitosis. The other way you can grow is increasing the number of cells. So if you count the number of cells when you were a newborn baby compared to now, we've got way more cells as a grown-up human than we did as a little baby human. The other thing that cells do is they differentiate. So our living things, they have cells that differentiate. So differentiation means that cells specialize for a certain job. So when you started off as a little egg and sperm that were fused together, a little bundle of cells, what ended up happening is over time, some of those cells developed into nerve cells, so you have a nervous system. Some develop into skeletal cells, so you have a skeletal system, and some developed into muscle cells. So all those different types of cells, they start off as one type of cell, as a stem cell that has no real job, and then as they develop, they specialize into certain jobs. Okay, another thing living things do is they obtain and they use energy. All right, so a couple of terms you probably learned during ecology last year is how organisms get their food. So if they have to eat other organisms, or even if they just have to eat, like, well, other organisms include something like grass. So if you need to eat something else in order to get energy, you're called heterotrophic. And the term hetero means other here. Remember, we talked about heterogeneous, and trophic means feeding or eating, getting energy somehow. So this is an other eater. So it needs to eat something else in order to get its nutrients. So we are heterotrophs. We need to eat fruits and vegetables and meat in order to get our energy. And the other term is autotrophic, auto meaning self. So this is a self-feeder. So this is an organism that can make its own food. So something like plants, where they use photosynthesis to take carbon dioxide and oxygen in order to make glucose for their energy needs. All right, and then of course we come along and we eat the plants so that we can get the glucose from them. Now another way an organism is living is it does reproduction, or it reproduces. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to have a child in order to be considered to be living, all right? So if you choose not to have a child, or you can't have a child, you're still a living organism because you have still done reproduction. So the first type is asexual reproduction. A means without. So this is without sex. So we don't need two different organisms or two different types of the same organism to make a new organism. So this is where we have one organism and it splits to make two. So something like a bacteria starts off as one bacteria, it splits to make two bacteria, two split to make four. Or your skin cells will split to make more skin cells. The other type of reproduction is our sexual reproduction, and this is where you have two organisms that are going to combine their gametes to make a new organism. So a female egg and a male sperm are going to combine to produce a child. The next thing we're going to talk about for characteristics of life is that we have some type of response to the environment. All right, so this is going to be our last slide. By the way, we only have 5 in this one here too. And you can go online and you can find a whole bunch of other definitions of what makes something living, but we're just going to stick to these simple ones. Right, so that we have some response to the environment, so that we have movement. Again, if you're somebody who cannot move, all right, you've been injured or something, that doesn't mean you're dead, all right? So you can have movement either internal or external. So you can either move your body from point A to point B, or your blood is pumping in your body from your heart to the whole parts of your body. So you've got some movement there. The second term is that you have irritability. All right, so this just doesn't mean that you're cranky, even though when you're cranky, you're responding to a stimulus that's kind of bugging you. So you may react to touch, you may react to sound, you may react to light. So if you look at your eyes, if you shine a light in them, the iris gets smaller to kind of reduce the amount of light that's going into your eyeballs there. So you're going to react to all sorts of different stimulus from the environment, or even from your internal environment. If your blood sugar goes down, a signal gets sent into your brain that goes, holy crap, I'm really, really hungry, I need to eat, and that's going to give you that feeling of hunger that really drives you to eat. Right? And then another thing that makes you living is that you're adaptable, so that you can change according to the conditions. So one of the really neat things about our human bodies is as winter comes in, our bodies adapt to coldness. Our cells burn glucose a little bit faster to produce more heat to keep us warmer. So that's why you'll find at the beginning of the winter, you're so cold at the beginning. Like even though it might be 10 degrees out, you're freezing cold, all right? So because your body is not used to those conditions, it's used to it being nice and warm. If you, a lot of Olympic athletes, what they like to do is they like to go and train at high altitudes. When they train at high altitudes, because the amount of oxygen that's available is a little bit lower, their bodies have to produce more red blood cells so they can capture whatever oxygen is available on those red blood cells to pump it around the body. So that way when they come back down to sea level, they have tons of red blood cells that can carry tons of oxygen around, so they can, perform a lot better in an athletic event, right? So humans are also adaptable. So that is the end of this slide. There'll be a nice cute little quiz for this, just to make sure that you took notes and that you kind of reviewed it later on. Again, you'll have 3 attempts to do the quiz. It'll just be open for one day, so do it really, really quickly. Talk to you next time.